Nintendo has just done something they almost never do, something that goes against decades of carefully cultivated corporate identity. They've publicly and willingly admitted that their next gigantic system-selling blockbuster has a flaw. You heard that correctly. The company famous for its impenetrable seal of quality, the absolute gold standard for polished, bug-free experiences, is getting ahead of the story and warning players that its most anticipated game in years, Donkey Kong Bananza, has performance issues. This isn't some vague corporate statement released after a million angry complaints. This is the game's director, Kazuya Takahashi, on the record before a single copy has been sold to the public, telling the entire world to expect frame rate drops. This is the equivalent of a master chef from a 3-Michelin-star restaurant walking out to your table to inform you that your main course might be slightly burnt before it even leaves the kitchen. It's unheard of, it's frankly shocking, and it raises 1,000 questions about the future of the video game giant. This isn't just about a few dropped frames in a single video game. This is a potential crack in the pristine, nigh invulnerable facade of Nintendo, a company that has built an international empire on the unwavering promise of perfection and buttery smooth gameplay. Today, we're going to dive deep into this shocking admission. What does it truly mean for Donkey Kong Bananza, a game carrying the colossal weight of a decade of anticipation and the hopes for a brand new console on its big, furry shoulders? And more importantly, could this be a sign that the Nintendo we all thought we knew, the cautious, family-friendly giant that has always prioritized stability over raw power, is about to change forever? In this deep dive, we'll expose exactly what these slight performance hiccups really are, and we'll explore the groundbreaking technology that's causing them. We'll dissect the director's incredibly candid statements and ask the big question: is this a warning sign of a rushed or flawed product, or is it actually proof that Nintendo is finally taking a massive, ambitious risk that could redefine its future? And what in the world does the king of the jungle have to do with Grand Theft Auto? Stick around, because the answers might just shatter your expectations for Nintendo's next generation. Let's set the stage properly, because the context here is absolutely everything. We are talking about Donkey Kong. Not just any character, but one of Nintendo's original titans, the very first antagonist that literally gave the legendary Shigeru Miyamoto his start in the industry. Yet for over 10 years, the big guy has been mostly absent from the spotlight. Sure, he shows up to play tennis or drive a go-kart, but a mainline, groundbreaking Donkey Kong adventure? The last one was Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, an undisputed masterpiece from 2014, developed by the wizards at Retro Studios. A whole decade has passed since then. For fans, the wait has been agonizing, filled with endless rumors and dashed hopes. So when Nintendo finally announced Donkey Kong Bananza as a flagship launch title for its next-generation console, the fabled Switch 2, the hype went into an uncontrollable overdrive. This wasn't just another sequel. This was positioned as a monumental return, a true system seller meant to stand shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Mario Kart World and demonstrate the sheer power of Nintendo's new hardware. Early impressions from those who've played it have been overwhelmingly positive, painting a picture of a game that is innovative, chaotic, and ridiculously fun. And at the very heart of this universal praise is the game's central mechanic: destruction. Glorious, world-altering, physics-based destruction. This is precisely where things get complicated. The game's director, Kazuya Takahashi, has been on a press tour, and in an interview with the publication L'Avanguardia, he was asked directly about minor performance issues that some previewers had noticed during intense moments of gameplay. Instead of dodging the question or giving a generic, PR-approved non-answer, Takahashi was surprisingly, almost unnervingly, honest. He admitted that Nintendo is, and I quote directly, aware that performance may drop slightly at these times. He then explained that this is a direct result of the game's most ambitious feature, its fundamental reliance on voxel technology for its destruction physics. Now, for those who aren't familiar, think of voxels as three-dimensional pixels. Instead of a game world being made of flat polygons stretched over a wireframe, A voxel world is built from millions of tiny solid cubes, like a universe made of digital Lego bricks, or a far more complex version of Minecraft's world. This technology allows for incredibly dynamic and granularly realistic destruction. When Donkey Kong smashes a pillar, it doesn't just trigger a pre-canned animation of it falling over. The pillar shatters into its constituent voxel parts, with hundreds or even thousands of individual pieces flying through the air, each one interacting with the environment and other debris according to the laws of physics. It's the difference between knocking over a cardboard movie set and demolishing an actual brick wall. It is computationally intensive, it is technically demanding, and, according to the director, it's the very soul of Donkey Kong Bananza's gameplay. This incredible level of ambition comes at a cost, a computational price. Takahashi elaborated, noting that to truly emphasize the spectacular impact of this destruction, the development team implemented cinematic effects like hit stop and slow motion, momentarily pausing or slowing the action to give every earth-shattering blow a palpable cinematic weight. The combination of the console's processor calculating the complex physics for thousands of flying debris particles while simultaneously manipulating the flow of time is what can cause the frame rate to take a small dip. But here is the crucial part of his statement, the philosophical choice that Nintendo made, which speaks volumes. He said that the team chose to favor fun and playability in these moments. In other words, they decided that a jaw-dropping, epic moment of destruction that briefly dips the frame rate is more valuable to the player's overall experience than a perfectly stable but less spectacular frame rate. This is a monumental admission. For decades, Nintendo's guiding philosophy, especially under the leadership of icons like the late Satoru Iwata, was that smooth, responsive, 60 frames per second gameplay was paramount. It was a sacred, non-negotiable pillar of their design. This new statement suggests a profound shift in that core belief. The company is essentially telling us that they are pushing their new hardware so hard with ambitious new ideas that they are willing to accept minor imperfections to achieve a greater artistic and interactive vision. This is a huge debate in gaming right now, raw ambition versus flawless performance. What do you prefer in your games? A perfectly smooth experience, or a groundbreaking one that might have a few rough edges? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into the heart of Nintendo's new philosophy, do us a massive favor and hit that like button. It truly helps us bring you more stories like this one, dissecting the news that matters. Let's zoom out for a moment and consider what this means for Nintendo as a corporate entity. For the past 3 console generations, the Wii, the Wii U, and the Switch, Nintendo has followed a very specific and highly successful playbook. They deliberately chose not to compete with Sony and Microsoft on raw graphical horsepower. Instead, they focused on innovative gameplay concepts and unique hardware gimmicks, like the motion controls of the Wii or the brilliant hybrid handheld console design of the Switch. Their strategy was to create unique, highly polished, and artistically beautiful experiences that ran flawlessly on their less powerful, more affordable hardware. It was a brilliant strategy that led to the phenomenal success of the Wii and the Switch. But it always came with the caveat that third-party developers often had to significantly scale back their games to run on Nintendo's systems, and Nintendo's own games, while gorgeous in their art style, rarely pushed the absolute technical boundaries of the industry. This announcement about Donkey Kong Bananza could be the first real signal that this era is ending. With the Switch 2, Nintendo might finally be re-entering the performance arms race, not necessarily to match the PlayStation or Xbox spec for spec, but to build a machine powerful enough that their own world-class developers feel liberated to experiment with incredibly demanding technologies like real-time voxel physics on a massive scale. This represents a genuine paradigm shift. We are potentially witnessing the birth of a new Nintendo, one that is willing to embrace the bleeding edge of technology and the risks that come with it. It's a Nintendo that might be more aligned with the modern gaming landscape, where performance modes and quality modes are standard features, and players understand that pushing graphical boundaries can sometimes lead to trade-offs. This single, candid statement from Kazuya Takahashi could be more revealing about the Switch 2's true power and Nintendo's future direction than any technical specification leak. It suggests a future where Nintendo's first-party titles are not just creatively brilliant, but technologically ambitious as well. It's a tantalizing prospect, but it also carries significant risk. Nintendo's seal of quality is arguably its most powerful and valuable brand asset. For generations of gamers, it has been a guarantee of stability and polish. If players start to associate Nintendo games with frame drops and performance hitches, even minor ones, it could tarnish a reputation that has been meticulously built and fiercely protected over 40 years. The company is walking a very fine line between courageous innovation and potentially damaging its own pristine brand identity. Now, let's address the most bizarre and intriguing part of this story, the comparison to Grand Theft Auto. An article headline quoted in the source material boldly claims, "I can't believe I'm saying this, but Donkey Kong Bananza is more like GTA than Super Mario Odyssey." At first glance, this sounds utterly insane. What could a game about a tie-wearing ape collecting bananas possibly have in common with a sprawling, mature-rated crime saga? But the article clarifies it's not about the content, it's about the core design philosophy. The quote describes it as the do-nothing, feel-everything stylings of GTA. This points to a game that is less about a rigid, linear progression from point A to point B, like a traditional Mario platformer, and more about existing within a highly reactive, physics-driven sandbox. In a Grand Theft Auto game, a huge part of the fun is simply messing around in the world, causing chaos, watching the physics engine create unpredictable and hilarious situations, and creating your own emergent stories that the designers never explicitly scripted. The comparison suggests that Donkey Kong Bananza will have a similar appeal. The joy won't just come from completing designated levels, but from the simple, tactile pleasure of interacting with its wholly destructible world. Smashing through a wall just to see how it crumbles, triggering a massive chain reaction of collapsing structures by punching a single support pillar, and just playing with the voxel physics could be a core part of the gameplay loop. This chaotic freeform style is the very thing that makes the game so ambitious, and it's inextricably linked to the performance issues. The very feature that makes it feel like a living, breathing sandbox is the feature that pushes the hardware to its absolute limits. It's not a bug, it's a direct consequence of the game's revolutionary core feature. So, as we look ahead to the game's release on July 17th, 2025, what should we truly expect? Will these slight performance drops be a noticeable blemish on an otherwise great game, or will they be a complete non-issue, lost in the glorious spectacle of the moment, just as the director hopes? The truth is, Nintendo's transparency might be its greatest asset here. By setting expectations early, they've skillfully framed the conversation. This isn't a flaw to be discovered and angrily reported on, it's a deliberate design trade-off to be experienced. They are betting that the sheer, unadulterated fun of unleashing Donkey Kong in a fully destructible world will far outweigh a few dropped frames. They are betting that players will embrace the ambition and forgive the minor imperfections. The road to July 2025 is going to be absolutely fascinating as we learn more about the Switch 2 and its flagship ape. If you want to stay on top of every single development, get our in-depth analysis, and not miss our final review when the game launches, make sure you are subscribed to the channel with all notifications turned on. You won't want to miss what comes next. In conclusion, this is so much more than a simple news story about a video game. Nintendo's preemptive warning about Donkey Kong Bananza's performance is a landmark moment. It signals a bold new direction for the legendary company, a pivot towards embracing technologically demanding, boundary-pushing game design, even if it comes with inherent risks. The game itself sounds like a revolution for the franchise, trading traditional linear platforming for a chaotic, physics-driven sandbox where destruction is not just a secondary feature, but the main attraction. The director's honesty is a refreshing, if startling change of pace in an industry often shrouded in secrecy and carefully managed marketing spin. Nintendo is essentially telling us that Donkey Kong might just be powerful enough to break their shiny new console. And honestly, that might be the most exciting thing they have said in over a decade. We are not just waiting for a new game anymore. We are on the cusp of witnessing the birth of a brand new, more daring, and far more ambitious Nintendo. And we will be here to cover every single moment.